Locked On Podcast Network and BetOnline present NFL Key Predictions. The local team experts of Locked On NFL give you the inside knowledge on the biggest games of the week and betting advice from the field's leading experts. You are Locked On NFL Key Predictions.
Hey everyone, and welcome into NFL Key Predictions. I'm Jordan Black. As the NFL enters Week 9, the trade deadline is behind us, and all eyes are now focused on the second half of the season and a playoff push. Typically strong teams like Tampa Bay and the champion LA Rams are still struggling, while surprising squads like the Jets try to keep their fun run alive. We start in Buffalo this week. Everyone had Buffalo atop the AFC East and dominating the NFL landscape, but few could have predicted Josh Allen versus Zach Wilson as a Week 9 premier matchup with serious division implications. While the team records may be similar, the two quarterbacks are on very different paths. Josh Allen holds the second best QBR in the league at 76.7 and has the Bills humming along. Meanwhile, Zach Wilson will be looking to prove he can be a franchise leader and get over his ugly 3-interception performance from just a week ago. Joe Marino from Locked On Bills and John Butchko from Locked On Jets have the preview for us.
I've said everything I need to say about Zach Wilson, right? And is this the moment? Is this the game? Is this the get right game against a really good Bills defense? I don't think it's going to be. And I worry even more about an identity crisis for Zach Wilson because, like I said earlier, I can only imagine what the conversations are like. You know, where it's a very clear ask of what the Jets want their quarterback to do. This is the Shanahan system, John. You realize how much Shanahan's system is out there. We know what they want to accomplish. And then I'm at the Senior Bowl this past year, and I'm watching the Jets offense run an entire team down there, and it's very clear the principles of what they want their quarterback to do. And so, with Zach Wilson kind of being in an identity crisis as a player, I think, and I think there's some urgency for that getting twisted around. I don't know that this is going to be that game where it all comes together for him. That's a big ask against a really good Bills team. I don't need to sit here and give the Bills any flowers. I think we understand what they're capable of on both sides of the football. Now, the Jets defense is something to talk about here. Like I've mentioned, they're good. You've mentioned they're good. And we're talking about a top 6 defense in the league right now in terms of yards. They're top 10 in both pass defense and rush defense. And I think the bigger numbers are some that I've already mentioned here. The 3.8 yards per carry allowed, second best in the league. The passer rating of 76.7, that's phenomenal. The pressure rate, third best in the league, and they're getting pressure without having to blitz. I mean, there's some good stuff going on here, and we haven't even seen this team with Jermaine Johnson yet, who's kind of been banged up and not really available, and I think that's going to make them even better. And obviously, Jordan Whitehead's a great addition. LaMarcus Joyner, those guys to stabilize in the safety position, which matters for this type of defense, which there's a lot of parallels schematically and structurally between the Bills and Jets and what they like to do defensively. I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't. I think the way the Bills played in the second half against Green Bay is going to really motivate this team, where it was a great first half. I think the Bills played phenomenal in the first half against Green Bay, and that certainly gave them the buffer that they needed to kind of cruise to a 10-point win. But offensively, that team, the team I watched in the second half against Green Bay was not the Bills. And I think they're going to be really hungry to come out and really kind of get right and play the style of football that they want to. And I think they're going to be stressed. I think the Bills offense is going to stress this defense, this good Jets defense, in ways that they haven't been yet. And so there's some fun matchups, and I think the Jets are on the up, but I think this is a big ask for them on Sunday. I like the Bills in this one, 31-17.
Joe, when you come off a bad loss like the Jets are, you're looking for what's known as a get-right game. And I look at this matchup, and it's almost like a get-wrong game to me. Like, this is the last team you want to see coming into the Meadowlands. First of all, just because the Bills are probably the best team in the NFL right now, but also stylistically, this is just such a tough matchup. I mean, we talked about Zach Wilson's struggles under pressure so far this year. So you're going up against what, for my money, could be the best defense in the NFL. I actually would like this matchup better for the Jets if they were having a typical Jets season where maybe they had 1 to 2 wins at this point, because then you could talk yourself into a scenario where maybe the Bills are looking past them, and it's a home divisional game. Those things always have wild card. Those things are always a bit of a wild card. I look at this, and to me, one of the things you look to when you're picking a game is if both teams play their A game, who's going to win? And I think that's clearly Buffalo in this one. I think for the Jets to win, something out of the ordinary is going to have to happen. It might be Zach Wilson having the best game of his career when he's facing this much adversity heading into the game. Maybe it's just Josh Allen playing an uncharacteristic bad game. Maybe it's a score that you get on special teams. Jets have had good special teams this year. They played awful last week. So maybe the special teams bounce back and you get a score on them, or you get a defensive score. Something weird needs to happen for the Jets to win this game. But I don't like Zach Wilson going up against this pass rush with this patchwork offensive line. I think the Jets defense can contain Buffalo's offense, but offensively, it's just a struggle for the Jets. You know, you said the word identity, and without Breece Hall, I'm not sure what this offense's identity is. And I think they might be able to figure it out over the course of the season. They have a bye coming up, so maybe that the extra week will help them figure some things out. But I just think this is the wrong opponent at the wrong time for the New York Jets. So I think I'm going Buffalo 20, Jets 10.
If you're looking for an X factor, because I think we had a good conversation, and then it was very much like, okay, back to, okay, the Bills are going to win the game, which we both agree. I think if there's that X factor, you kind of mentioned some things to go right for the Jets to win this game. I go to turnovers. I do. And the Jets have been very good at forcing turnovers. They've forced a turnover in every game this year. I'm not sure that another team in the league can say that they've done that. 12 turnovers forced in 8 games. And the Bills, for as good as they've been, they have to do a better job protecting the football. They're committing a turnover on 16.4% of their drives this year. That's 4th worst in the NFL. So, John, that's a talking point I'd run with you for the rest of the week if I were you, because that's how you get it done. And the metric outside of points for and points against that is most correlative to winning and losing throughout the history of football is turnovers. And so the Bills have to be aggressive and play their game, but it has to come with taking care of the football. So that's something I'll be definitely monitoring on Sunday afternoon.
From Locked On Bets, here's Lee Sterling.
This is Lee Sterling from Locked On Bets and Paramount Sports with your BetOnline prediction for the game between the Buffalo Bills, who are favored by 12.5 points, playing at the New York Jets. Now, last week, Jets quarterback Zach Wilson, not one of his best games. 3 interceptions, and he was less than 50% completion percentage. I think he's pressing. They lost their star running back, rookie Breece Hall. He's not going to be playing the rest of the season. This offense has not been the same here. Buffalo's defense will be matched up here against Wilson. They are number 1 scoring defense, number 4 in yards per play allowed, and number 3 in sacks. Going to be a real tough matchup here for the Jets. Also, the premier matchup here is Buffalo's wide receiver Stephon Diggs against Jets quarterback Sauce Gardner. That should be an incredible, fun-filled, intense matchup. But I think because Gardner's going to be matched up against Diggs, the other 2 receivers for the Buffalo Bills could be in line for big games here. And we saw Josh Allen very upset with the second half performance. I think they come out firing and they continue to lay it on here, the Jets here. Sometimes you got to lay it if you want to play it. Buffalo minus 12.5, blowout over the New York Jets, 40-17. For more, subscribe to Locked On Bets wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Prediction Strike, the world's first sports stock market. You can now invest in professional athletes just like stocks. It's a lower risk alternative to sports betting, and athlete prices move based on performance and supply and demand. So download the Prediction Strike app and use code LOCKED for a free share when you sign up and make a deposit of $20 or more. That's promo code LOCKED for a special one-time giveaway. Prediction Strike will choose one person who signs up with that code LOCKED and makes a deposit to win 100 random shares. That could be worth up to $3,000 if you get lucky and receive Josh Allen shares. So invest in what you know on Prediction Strike, the stock market for sports. The Arizona Cardinals will host the Seattle Seahawks in an NFC West tilt on Sunday. Geno Smith continues his impressive season, completing over 72% of his passes and leaning on DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett to keep Seattle on track and atop the division. On the other side, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals were supposed to be ascending this season, and yet disjointed game scripts and unbalanced offensive performances have them staring down a potential loss, which could effectively bury their season. Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks and Alex Clancy from Locked On Cardinals have the coverage for this game.
Well, starting on defense, I got to start with a player I name dropped earlier. Mm-hmm. This team really missed Jamal Adams the first few games. And this is not a shot at Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams being healthy would help this team a lot, especially with his blitzing ability. I think this new scheme that they had was perfectly catered for him to maximize his unique talents. But Ryan Neal, the last 2 weeks, has been playing like an all-pro caliber safety. That is not an exaggeration. 2 weeks ago, he had 4 pass breakups and an interception in one game against Justin Herbert and the Chargers. This past weekend against the Giants, he stuffed Saquon Barkley for a 3-yard loss on a screen play. He had another tackle for a loss, and then he had another tackle that he made that the receiver ended up being a yard short of the first down marker because he blew him up. This guy's flying all over the place. I look at this game, he got to Kyler Murray a few weeks ago and sacked him on a safety blitz. They ran some fire zones in that game. I'm expecting they're still going to be sprinkling some of those in with him coming after the quarterback because of his athleticism and his ability to chase after Kyler Murray. And I also think he's going to be an important player in coverage, especially if they decide to do some bracketing stuff on DeAndre Hopkins. You could very well see Ryan Neal doing that. So on defense, Ryan Neal to me is a crucial player. And I mentioned Metcalf and Lockett. DK Metcalf needs to have a big game for the Seahawks to win on the road. And he played fairly well when they were in Arizona last year, but he had a very quiet game. The Cardinals give him a ton of credit. That was something they did a really good job a few weeks ago. The Seahawks have to figure out what are some ways we can get the football in his hands. If the Cardinals are doing the same stuff they did last time where they're constantly double teaming him, find some ways to get some quick screens to him or get some slants, in routes, whatever. Get the football in your playmaker's hand. And if you keep doing it over and over again, you're going to force the Cardinals to make some adjustments, and some of those over-the-top throws can open up. I just think DK is going to have to be a big factor for this offense. He wasn't last time, and they got away with it. I don't think you can have this rematch. And so to me, Metcalf is the player to keep a really close eye on that needs to have a big game for the Seahawks to win at Glendale.
Yeah, it's interesting, because Tyler Lockett's been a 4-letter word. We've talked about this. Tyler Lockett's absolutely punished the Cardinals. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where it is.
I think he's more impacted by the lower body injuries right now.
Maybe.
Than DK Metcalf. Metcalf, to me, last week looked like typical DK Metcalf.
Yes, he did.
Lockett still looks to me like he's not quite himself. He's still making plays, but that might be the biggest reason I'm throwing Metcalf out there too.
Sure, absolutely. Rodney Hudson officially out. I don't know if I mentioned that before. So the center is officially out. My key matchup is Kyler Murray versus the pass rush of Kyler Murray. Normally you take away the quarterback with these things where it's like, okay, the quarterback's obviously the most impactful player. Like you kind of remove him from all the conversations. I can't. It has to be him. They go as he goes. And he hasn't necessarily regressed this year, but he hasn't taken that step forward that people expected him to in his 4th year. This is the year that most quarterbacks really emerge as pro quarterbacks, elite quarterbacks, if they're going to get there. I think the jury's still out on him. He needs to have a game. He needs to have a 300-yard passing, 2 or 3 touchdown passing game to remind people that he can be elite. It's going to be difficult for all the defensive reasons you've mentioned during the last 25 minutes of this podcast. But he's one where it's like, it's got to happen. It's got to be him. It's got to happen. And then it's going to be Byron Murphy versus whoever it's going to be, Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf hasn't fared very well against the Arizona Cardinals over the last couple seasons. Save him, tracking down Budda Baker, and it's something that no human should ever be able to do, but he did on Sunday Night Football on that flex game a couple years ago. It's going to be Byron Murphy and Kyler Murray. Those are the two that I'm going to be watching, because if Kyler Murray continues to not put up numbers like we saw last year, and this is where it's coming into crunch time because their record isn't ideal through 8 weeks, there's going to be questions swirling. Oh, is it Cliff? Is it Kyler? Is it both? Should they trade? It's not going to get easier. So the Cardinals and Kyler Murray really need to solidify themselves from the quarterback position, regardless of how the offensive line looks come game day. Now, I know neither of us, you or I, really love giving an actual number, a score prediction, but you have to. So give yours.
Well, nobody says that I have to. Our friends over at BetOnline have the odds here, and the Seahawks are +2 going into this game currently, according to odds. So they're expecting this to be a very tightly contested game. So based off of that, not to sound homerish here, but I do feel like this is a game with the way that the Seahawks are playing right now on both sides of the ball. You should be able to get above that 2-point threshold against this Cardinals team. And I feel like the Seahawks, you might say house money with the way Geno's playing, but it just seems like right now they are rolling as well as any team not named the Philadelphia Eagles and the Buffalo Bills in the NFL right now, the last 3 weeks. The defense is playing top 5 level. The offense maybe hasn't been quite as explosive as it was early in the season, but they're still putting up 26, 27 points minimum most games. So I just think you look at the way they're playing and the fact the Cardinals, it just seems like they can't quite figure out how to get over the hump. Now, maybe this is the game that they do, but Seattle has historically played better against the Cardinals in Glendale. And I think that that's going to continue in this game. I think it'll be close. I think that it's going to be a game that stays within 7 points. But that +2, I mean, I would take the Seahawks on that. I think they're going to find a way to win this game. We'll just leave it at that.
From Locked On Bets, here's Lee Sterling.
This is Lee Sterling from Locked On Bets and Paramount Sports with your BetOnline prediction for the game on Sunday between the Arizona Cardinals at home, laying 2 points, playing the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Seattle quarterback Geno Smith is showing no signs of turning into a pumpkin. Boy, is he playing at a high level. 13 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions. And he certainly has all the command, it seems like, of a quarterback that might be taking his team to the playoffs. Arizona quarterback Kyler Murray just having trouble reading defenses. He and Cliff Kingsbury don't seem to be on the same page. And those two playing and coaching in Arizona could be coming to an end at the end of the season. Now, the Arizona run defense, which had been better early in the season, gave up 173 rushing yards last week to the Minnesota Vikings and Dalvin Cook. Now they got to face Kenneth Walker III, high draft pick for the Seattle Seahawks, and they could have trouble again this Sunday. And the Cardinals, never one of the best home teams, just 1-8 straight up and 2-7 against the spread the last 9 home games. We're going to call for the outright upset. Seattle 27, Arizona Cardinals 20. For more, subscribe to Locked On Bets wherever you get your podcasts.
Tom Brady has never won against the Rams with the Buccaneers. And ironically, both Tampa Bay and Los Angeles have struggled to find any signs of championship form this season. Injuries have certainly played a part there, but midseason is no time for excuses. Tampa's defense is getting healthy, which could help in attacking what has at times been a less than inspired offense for Matt Stafford and the Rams. Through 8 weeks, the LA signal caller has thrown interceptions in all but 2 games and currently carries a 7-touchdown to 8 interception line on the year. Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams joins James Yarcho and David Harrison from Locked On Bucs to break down this game for us.
The Buccaneers, I don't know how this happens. The Buccaneers are favorites again. I don't get it.
I do, because I've seen the Rams play 7 times this year. So I don't care who they're playing against. I don't know if they're, especially if they got to go on the road. I don't know what the number should be, but the Rams should not be on the right side of it. That's for sure.
I don't think the Buccaneers have been an underdog this season, and they continue to be favored. They haven't covered the spread in 6 consecutive games. Yet here we are, the Buccaneers 2.5-point favorites over the visiting Los Angeles Rams, who have won 8 of the last 9 and 19 out of 28 total matchups in the history of these two teams, including being 3-0 in the playoffs against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're not going to talk about Bert Emanuel because that was a catch. But Travis,
I thought you were going to go back to 1979 in the NFC Championship game that the Rams won 9-0. I thought you were going to go way back.
I wasn't born for that, so I can't speak on it. But Bert Emanuel caught that ball, and we haven't known what a catch was since.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
All right, Travis, how do you see this game playing out, and what is your score prediction?
I think that it's going to be a low scoring game because just about every game that the Rams have played this season has been a low scoring game. They don't, it's funny. And it's taken me about to this point in the season, maybe a week or so ago, because I kind of felt it coming up against the 49ers. But this is Sean McVay's 5th season here in Los Angeles. And when he showed up and all of a sudden turned what Jeff Fisher had going here, which was, they're trying to win games 12-9, they're trying to win games 14-13, and all of a sudden it's 30 points a game, just boom, boom, boom. And it looked easy. And it's like, wow, what in the world has this guy figured out? Is he broken football? He's cracked the code. And, it's come back to earth a little bit, but through the first 4 seasons of Sean McVay's career here, the Rams score points. They've never really struggled to score points. That when they were good, they scored 35. When they did not play particularly well, they'd score 24 or 27. They score, not this year. They do not score points. They really struggle. They give you a little bit of a story here. Last week, going into the game, the idea was if Matthew Stafford doesn't turn it over, if they can get a lead, if they can have some long sustained drives, Debo's not playing, this is setting up for them to go win this game against the 49ers for the first. That's exactly what happened, and they lost by 17 points. So they can't score. They just do not put points on the board. So I think it's going to be low scoring. I know that Tampa's had some troubles that are similar to this. So I'm going to try to turn the tide a little reverse psychology right here. I think that the Bucs win. I think that it's close. Let's call it maybe 20-17 in this one, because I don't think either one of these teams gets much beyond 20 points.
I'm surprised to hear you picking the Bucs, honestly, just knowing how these two teams really match up. And I swore up and down until the Bucs gave me a reason to. I wasn't going to pick them for the rest of the year. But I've reached a point now where this is a 3-5 football team who are now in second place in the worst division of football. And everything that can go wrong has. Brady hasn't looked like Brady. The play calling has been bad. You've dealt with injuries. You've lost your entire interior of your offensive line. If I'm going to trust one guy to figure out how to go out and win one football game, that's going to be Tom Brady. And with their backs against the wall in a must-win situation, if you fall to 3-6, you're done. It's over, because you are not rattling off, what would that be? 7 of 8 and finishing the season with a winning record and getting into the playoffs. It won't happen. They have to win this game. And I think that they do. I am picking them to score a little bit more. I'll give the Rams the 24 that the Bucs have been giving up in the losses, but I think a late Ryan Suckup field goal is going to get the job done, and the Bucs win this one 27-24. So Travis, let's run it down. All of the big points for the Rams in this one, in a must-win game for both teams. How do you see it all playing out from the biggest story to the biggest matchup?
Yeah, I think that the biggest story, what you just mentioned, James, is this is something that both of these teams have to have. You mentioned, the Rams have already had their bye, so they've got to play 10 weeks in a row from this point forward. They're going to have to get probably in the NFC 9 wins, get you in. Maybe if everything breaks weird, maybe an 8-9 team can slide in at that 7th spot, but 9 seems to be the comfortable number, which means over the course of the last 10 games, the Rams are going to have to go 6-4. They have not looked like a team that can win 6 out of 10 games at any point during this season. So this is a game that you have to have, because basically what they have left the rest of the way, you've got Kansas City in Kansas City. That's a loss. The other 8 games, or the other 9 games, including the Tampa game coming up on Sunday, they're 50-50 games. They're games that they could win. They're games that they could easily lose. They're not going to be heavy favorites. They're not going to be heavy underdogs in any of them other than Kansas City. So this is one that they're going to have. That they're rolling the same team, like I mentioned at the beginning, into this game that they did against San Francisco. The trade deadline has gone by. They didn't do anything different. I think tells you what Sean McVay thinks of this team, what Les Snead thinks of this team, and that they're hoping that what they have gets a little better. They get a little healthier. Maybe they catch fire at the end. They're going to have to run the ball a little bit if they're going to want to have any chance at all, something they haven't been able to do all season long.
Yeah, and on the Buccaneers side, it's about this losing streak. 5 of the last 6. The last time Brady lost 3 in a row, the Patriots actually lost 4 in a row, and that was way back in 2002, the year Tampa won their first Super Bowl. But the Patriots didn't even make the playoffs that year. So this is it. They didn't make any big moves at the deadline to improve the offensive line, to improve the offense, to improve the secondary, nothing. They trust the guys in that room. They trust the coaches on the sideline, and they flat out have to figure out a way to win this game. Devin White mentioned before the season even started that they haven't been able to figure out how to beat the Rams, and every player in that locker room had this game circled as one that they have to win. They have to get over this hump if they are going to contend in the NFC. And they don't look like a playoff team right now, but if they win on Sunday, they get over this hump. They've already beaten the Saints, which was the other big one for them. That could spark something in this team where they could win a very bad division with 8 or 9 wins. And once you're in the tournament, anything can happen. You just have to get there. I wouldn't have said that the Cincinnati Bengals were the best team in the AFC last year. They just got hot at the right time, and they mowed through the competition, wound up in the Super Bowl. The year before, I don't think the Buccaneers were the best team in the NFC, but they got hot at the right time. Both teams desperate for a win. I think we're going to be in for a really, really entertaining game, either from an aspect of watching some really great football, or it's going to be entertaining because both teams are so inept that it becomes comical and we just enjoy ourselves.
If it were on a Thursday night, that's definitely what it would be. That's the Thursday night territory. First one to 12 wins the game.
LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The Kansas City Chiefs have been hitting their offensive stride, last week posting 40 points in a season where offense has been frankly hard to come by. The Titans have the front seven to put some stains on Mahomes' jersey, but one of the NFL's best quarterbacks is known for elusive play and off-script throws. For Tennessee, Derrick Henry truly is the king of the offense, coming off a 219 yards rushing performance in Week 8. Ryan Tannehill is nursing an injury, and rookie Malik Willis was uninspiring in relief. Ultimately, this will be a test of teams that win in drastically different ways. Ryan Tracy from Locked On Chiefs and Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans have the Sunday night preview.
We've gone over our biggest storylines. We've gone over our matchups to watch. Now we do need to get into our game and score predictions. And Chris, I'm just going to kick it off here. I know that the Titans have played well against Kansas City in the regular season. They've beaten Kansas City quite a bit in the regular season with the cores that we're still seeing, Ryan Tannehill and Patrick Mahomes. We've seen that. Heck, you can go all the way back to 2017 when the Titans shouldn't have won that game where Mariota threw the pass to himself, but Jonathan Cyprien knocked out Travis Kelce with a concussion in the first half, and then the Titans found a way to come back. So without that concussion, that's not another win for the Titans, but the point remains. The Titans have had some good luck against the Chiefs, but I think that luck runs out. I said when it happened, I've said it all season, to the dismay of Titans fans who don't want to hear about it anymore, but the Titans don't have A.J. Brown now. And yeah, they beat the crap out of the Texans and the Colts twice and the Commanders and the Raiders. These are terrible teams, okay? So
thank you for saying that.
Yeah, Titans fans are going to say that I'm just national media who doesn't believe in them, but they've played nothing but terrible teams. They've looked pretty poor while doing it as well. I don't believe that the Titans are a good team, and I don't think that they can beat good teams this year like they have in the past because they don't have A.J. Brown. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win this game 24-13. The Titans, through their own volition, the Titans have killed any chance that they can be a potent offense in the NFL by trading the best player on their team and giving him to Philadelphia so that they can go undefeated and win the Super Bowl this year. So without having a passing offense of any kind, the Chiefs are a smart enough coaching staff to find a way to prevent Derrick Henry from going for 200 yards and beating them single-handedly. So I'm going to say 24-13. I don't think it's very close. The game won't feel very close. It might be 24-3 or something, and then the Titans get some garbage points. I think this is a handily easy win for the Chiefs, 24-13.
You know, I look at what your record is, and I agree with you. If you just look at the record and you don't realize who they've played, you kind of look at it and you go, well, the Titans are a pretty good team. And I mean, no, I'm not trying to throw shade at your team, but you're right about who they played. And I was looking at that before we started this. It is not a schedule that has a lot of hard games in it. And this is the part of the schedule where, or it had been the part of the schedule where they went through a lot of soft opponents. Now you're going to be facing Kansas City coming off a bye, where Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are fantastic coming off of a bye. And they're getting a new weapon in Kadarius Toney. Travis Kelce has been playing out of his mind again this season. And they're still just scratching the surface, I truly do believe, when it comes to guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And Sky Moore hasn't gotten involved in the offense yet. And McCole Hardman had a great game last week, but he had, 10 yards on his 3 touchdowns? Well, no, one of his touchdowns was 25 yards, but on the other 2, it was less than 5 yards.
They're all like jet sweeps,
I think between
right?
them. Yeah, right. So, I think this offense is going to play well. It looks like they're going to be healthy. They're going to get Trent McDuffie back. I said that earlier. That's going to be huge for them. But I also like what Kadarius Toney could bring to this offense if he plays. I think they'll have some packages for him. But I also think that they're going to use him on special teams. I think that could really help Kansas City, because the biggest thing that you can't do if you're the Chiefs is, I'm not worried about them overlooking this game. I'm worried about it there being a situation where they do the same thing that they did with the Colts, and they beat themselves in a way that you just can't do. You turn the ball over a couple of times any given Sunday. Right. And that's the reality of it. I still think Kansas City wins. I think that the score is going to be maybe even a lot more lopsided than what you're suggesting. I would go 34-17 Kansas City.
You think the Titans are going to score 17 points? Man, that would be awesome.
Garbage points count as points.
They do indeed. Yeah, I mean, the Titans were only able to score 17 against the lowly Texans. So I would be pretty happy if they were able to put up 17 points against Kansas City. But I do want to mention one last thing here. I wish so desperately that the Titans would have got Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he blocks. He's physical. He's a run after the catch threat. A lot of people don't like him, just him and the TikToks and all that. So they don't want him on the football team and all that. But man, this Titans team would be a lot more competitive in these upcoming matchups, in my opinion, if they had a guy like Juju to go with Robert Woods. If they just had a real NFL wide receiver that to go along with Robert Woods is 30-year-old off an ACL itself. They just need a real NFL wide receiver, and they don't really have one right now. So Kansas City will soak up all the benefits of that.
Yeah, and I will say this about Juju. I think that it is going to be more evidence after this season is over that him coming to Kansas City was one of the best decisions he could have made. Yep. From what I've seen from him on the field, I think that he is in a position to have a season as long as he stays healthy, and that's always the caveat with players.
Right.
As long as he stays healthy, he could easily go over 1,000 yards. I think that that's possibly a reality. Maybe he gets to 7 or 8 touchdowns. And I know those numbers sound high based on what he's done so far, but it's chemistry. You got to have time with the players. You got to get them all on the same page. And I think that's a thing with MVS too. But I will also say this: if he plays well enough, I will not be surprised if Kansas City doesn't try to bring him back next year. Now, will he be outside of what they could pay him? Possibly. But I would not be surprised if Kansas City brings him back if he plays well in this offense, because I think that you are looking at a situation where Travis Kelce is still getting older and they're going to have to replace a playmaker at some point.
Yeah, and especially a physical guy who can make catches over the middle of the field and create yards after catch opportunities. Although he's not a tight end, he could be a nice replacement for Travis Kelce long term. In fairness, like you said, Kansas City's probably the best place that he could have picked to go. Well, in fairness, the Titans would have been like the worst place because he basically would have been playing wide receiver for Army or Navy at that point. So probably a good call for Juju on that one. But just a little recap for you guys. My biggest storyline for the Titans is whether Ryan Tannehill will be healthy enough to play in this game so that the Titans can have some semblance of a passing offense and hopefully find a way to stay competitive in this matchup if the defense allows them to do it. Matchups for me, it's all about Jeffrey Simmons, Teair Tart, Danico Autry against the interior of the offensive line of the Chiefs, because that's where the Titans like to attack. And then you got to watch out for safety Amani Hooker or Kevin Byard if Hooker can't play. Whoever's going to be guarding Travis Kelce one-on-one, that will be a matchup to watch. And then my prediction for the score is 24-13 Chiefs.
Yeah, and a quick recap of mine. I think that the biggest story for Kansas City is the trade deadline and what they did do and what they didn't do. Lots of moves that's played in that scenario. Then you start looking at what the matchups are going to be. For me, it's always going to be the Chiefs tackles. They've just played poorly at times this year, and it's really hampered their offense at times. Although it's kind of funny I say that, and I look back at the scores, and they're still scoring 30 points a game. So it's hampering them, but it's not stopping them. They're finding their way through it. And then you look at the other matchup is just this. How do you stop Derrick Henry? How does this team go up against Derrick Henry? How does this defensive line handle a guy like Henry? And it's not necessarily, like I said, it's not that it's about Henry. It's about, can you stop the running game? Because that is going to become more important when you get towards the playoffs. I'm not saying it's going to be the most important, because I think everything is going to go through the Bills. Bills don't really run the ball that much, so you're going to have to be able to stop the pass, but you still need to be able to stop the run when you get into the postseason. And then for me, I think Kansas City wins this game, and I think it's 34-17, and maybe it's not that close. We'll see.
BetOnline has the coverage of the lines ahead of this matchup.
This is BetOnline All Access. It's the Titans and Chiefs this Sunday night. Here's Drew Butler, Anthony Becht, and Jonathan Casillas.
Tennessee Titans are red hot, 5 straight wins. They're hitting the road to Kansas City. Kansas City's a 12.5-point favorite. The total's 46.5.
Way too many points here. I got to roll with the Titans in this situation. They're going to ride their dog in the backfield. Derrick Henry's got to have a big game, control the clock. I think they could definitely, I'll take those points all day.
Control the clock with Derrick Henry, steal a possession from Patrick Mahomes, and keep it a little close. Maybe they don't win, but I think it's going to be inside those 12.5 points.
Tennessee's won 5 straight, but against some of the worst teams in the NFL. I think they get exposed here. Will Malik Willis play or Ryan Tannehill? I'm going to lay the 12.5 with the Chiefs at home in Arrowhead.
Thanks, guys. Get Titans, Chiefs, and everything else you need in our full episode of All Access at BetOnline's YouTube channel.
Baltimore was active at the trade deadline and bolstered its defense for the second half run. Lamar Jackson has not been perfect thus far, and yet much like the team feels poised to go on a run. On the other end of the spectrum, we find the New Orleans Saints. Veteran Andy Dalton has taken over following injury issues for Jameis Winston, and somewhat surprisingly has been effective at times, most recently a 2-touchdown performance in that 24-0 shutout of the Raiders. These teams may be on different paths this season, but this feels set for a battle come Monday night. Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints and Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens have the Monday night matchup.
Yeah, this is one where, well, honestly, we're talking about matchups in the last segment. I wish we were able to see Marcus Williams go up against the Saints.
Oh, we don't get the Marcus Williams revenge game. Darn, I'm so disappointed. Oh, my goodness.
He was balling out in Baltimore, by the way. He was a phenomenal, as you know, he's a phenomenal player. But my prediction in this one, they'll win for Marcus. They will say, you're not able to go out there. We will go get this win for you. So I'm going to say Ravens win here. I think that with the momentum they have built over these past 2 games, this is their first win or loss streak of the year. Before they had flipped, it was win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, and then finally they get another win. So I'm going to say that this is I always say it's a closer game than people anticipate. I do think it will be. I'll say the Ravens win this one 30-24.
Oh.
And so more of a high-scoring game than maybe some people think, but I think the Baltimore offense really did hit their stride. I think that the Saints offense can do some stuff against this Baltimore defense, but if the Ravens defense adjusts, then I think it could be more of a blowout in Baltimore's favor. But I think the Saints are a talented team, and the Saints defense also has some talented players on it. So I'll go 30-24 Ravens. I think Lamar will have a good game in this one, and the Ravens will be a more balanced offense, and I think that'll work in their favor.
I try to be very, very objective on this show, and I choose the Saints to lose when I think that they will. I choose the Saints to win when I think that they will. Today, I'm going to choose the Saints to win because I think that they can. So it's a little bit of a different designation, a little bit of a different approach for me than usual. I think if the Ravens win, it's like 23-10. Like they just march in, march out, everybody goes home. But I think that the New Orleans Saints can win this game. I think that the New Orleans Saints need to win this game. And I think that's a deciding factor for them because it's different. It's not that they need to win because of desperation. It's that they had such an impressive showing last week that this is probably the most that they believed in themselves since week 2 after the 16-point comeback in Atlanta. And they get to go back-to-back at home. And the home field advantage last week was outstanding. So I'm going to take the Saints to actually win this week. And I surprised myself because
I haven't changed any of my preseason predictions so far in terms of the way that I picked the season so far. This is the first time that I'm changing one of my preseason predictions. I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints to win, but it's going to be like 24-21. Like it's a last second field goal. Now, this would be a big thing for Will Lutz, who's missed 5 field goals already this season, which is tied for his second highest total in his career. Maybe Justin Tucker misses another field goal instead of an extra point. Sorry to bring that up. But, like these are the things that have to go right for the Saints in order for them to win this game, though. And I think somehow, some way, they will find a way for all the things to go right and they'll execute. And maybe it's the Ravens that are shooting themselves in the foot for a change against the Saints, when the Saints have been the team usually shooting themselves in the foot. I know usually so far this season when the Ravens have lost, it's because they've shot themselves in the foot. I think the Saints need that luck to go that way as well. So I'm going 24-21 in favor of the New Orleans Saints, shocking even myself. All right, let's wrap this up with a quick recap. Biggest story for those Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for Roquan Smith. I think that he's going to be able to make an impact, again, assuming he does play. But this is the type of game. It's prime time. It's Monday night under the lights. This is actually Baltimore's final primetime game of the season, barring any late season flexes, right, which maybe we will see. But Baltimore back-to-back primetime games going for 3 straight wins. It's funny, Ross, you talk about the momentum aspect of things, and now the Saints, again, they got that win. They're believing in themselves. So it was the same thing for Baltimore last week. They beat Cleveland after stuff went wrong. Justice Hill fumbled deep in Cleveland territory and gave the Browns a shot to win the game. And you're thinking, here we go again. They're going to lose. But they win. They pull it out. And so that was a big momentum step for them. And I think it helped them beat Tampa Bay even after a slow start. So with New Orleans, I think you go in with that same mindset. But adding a player like Roquan Smith to this defense that is already finding its stride, I think it's such a big thing. Good. And while, again, wide receiver was a very big talking point trade-wise, just as it was in free agency, adding somebody, a veteran. It didn't happen either way, but adding Smith to your defense just makes it so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. For the New Orleans Saints, biggest story, simple. You're trying to keep the momentum going. You're in the only division in the NFL that doesn't have a team with a winning record. You're in striking distance still, even though you're 3-5, and usually you'd be starting to get counted out at week 9. Saints want to keep themselves alive there. And by the way, you're also looking at health here over the course this week. Will Adam Troutman be available? Will Jarvis Landry be available? Those are going to be names to watch out for. Key matchups for the Saints side, I think it's all about Lamar Jackson up against that New Orleans Saints defense. Can the Saints defense find a way to put a cap on what Lamar Jackson is able to do? He's one of those players that, I'll use the old cliche, you don't stop him, but you got to try to limit him. So that's exactly where I think the Saints go there. From your perspective, the best big matchup that you're watching.
You got to be Devin Duvernay for me against the Saints corners. And I know we talked a bit about that Lamar Jackson key versus Taysom Hill key. But
that's a great one.
Taysom Hill is not a budget Lamar Jackson. I will end with that one.
You're right. Lamar Jackson is a budget Taysom. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I couldn't even finish it. I won't even make that joke. Lamar Jackson is like one of my favorite players in the entire league. I could not possibly make that joke.
Week 9 in the NFL, like every week, can provide shocking upsets and offensive blowouts. Each and every week, we will continue to bring you all of the insight and analysis from across our Locked On network. I'm Jordan Black, and this has been NFL Key Predictions.